Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third month of the Coworking IDEA Challenge. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Coworking IDEA Challenge is IDEA. Always get this wrong, so stay tuned. Which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Is that right, Ashley?
Absolutely.
There we go. And it's a global project. I'm always sensitive about using the word global, but this time it is. And we're going around and connecting with people who run co-working spaces, workspaces, fab labs, neighborhood spaces, what you want to call, that are in the co-working movement, to help them understand how to, like a practical implementation of an inclusion and diversity policy. Because very few of us are big we're not Nike or another big company like Apple, where we have a diversity and inclusion team. And for a lot of the spaces I know in London, this has turned into where people can come to a small half-hour call, do an exercise together, and stay true to their co-working business in a sort of social justice, fairness, equality kind of way, but also like tick the boxes you need to tick for insurance and running a healthy 21st century business. So every month there's a simple challenge that is worked out between members all around the co-working community in the world, and then we run one challenge for a whole month, and people take part, invite them to calls at the end. Is there anything you want to add to that, Ashley?
That's a great summary. I think the most important part is that the challenges are meant to be really accessible to folks who maybe don't have experience in IDEA work in the past. And so by working together, we can share the resources that we're finding and the things that we're learning as we go. And we're also very intentionally creating a safe space for people to hold that conversation, because some folks are learning the language. Some folks are learning because they don't happen to have that lived experience themselves. So we're learning from each other in conversation and through our experiences.
Definitely. And this is not a you're not doing your right conversation, because once you get into the conversation, and something I've definitely found out being part of this for 5 years, running not this project, but this conversation that's been happening at co-working conferences solidly for 5 years, is like how much you don't know. So, particularly as a white European male wandering around the universe, married to someone from another country, my eyes have been opened by how many little mistakes I make, and it's very uncomfortable for people to point it out to you. So it's not a test; it's a lifelong education thing in how to build a safe and fair universe.
Yeah, and because these challenges are meant to be starting points for conversation, it's not showing you how to do it. And it's really done differently in different regions and in different scenarios, whether you're producing an event or managing a co-working space in person or a virtual community of people. But what we're doing is just starting conversations and giving you a place to begin your research and your work in this area, and then a place to also be a portal for resources for folks to connect in. And if they want to dive deeper on these topics, they can through the different events that we host throughout the month.
Nice. So, Ashley, what's this month's event?
Well, the April 2021 IDEA Challenge is to update your membership agreement and your code of conduct. So when we welcome new members into our space, we start the relationship by basically making them more comfortable. And we do that by giving them a tour. We ask them to try out the facilities, and they get a feel for the culture in the space. We might introduce them to other members. But we also need to give them a membership agreement or something that outlines their rights and responsibilities as members in our space. And we need to clearly define what those expectations are upfront so that we can avoid confusion or conflict down the road between members, and also between members and ourselves as operators or community managers. And so this document, the membership agreement, will outline all of the terms of that kind of exchange. But we want to make sure folks also within their membership agreement have a code of conduct. And the code of conduct is actually a pretty specific part of the membership agreement that outlines how people agree to interact with each other in the space, and what is acceptable behavior within your group, how you might be able to provide feedback or report any concerns, and what the conflict resolution process would look like. And so that code of conduct should also include a few key points. And those are an anti-racism, anti-discrimination, and anti-harassment policy, so that you're ensuring a safe experience and a safe space for everyone. So there are a lot of different ways you can do a code of conduct, and we give you a few examples on the website. There are links you can click through. And our friends at Cobot have also created a co-working code of conduct template. Are you familiar with the template?
I am familiar with the template because in Co-working Europe in, I think it was 2016 or 2017, but they sponsored the after show party, the closing party, and one of their things was, we will only sponsor if you have a code of conduct. And we're like, oh, what do you mean? And then they showed it, and it's like, actually, that's exactly the sort of party we want to run. Also, there's I mean, this is probably definitely part of the code of conduct, but something that comes up a lot is when people are in a workplace, like if you're all in the Amazon office, there's an Amazon code of conduct. And then when you're in a co-working space, it's many businesses working together. Some of them are freelancers. I've worked on my own for a long, long time until now. And I've had a set of values that I mentally operate by, but I haven't had a written out, this is what happens in Bernie's office. So people are at different stages. So there's been a lot of gray areas about how things should be carried out in a co-working space. What happens if, and bigger spaces which have more resources and a legal department have that, and people that don't have those resources very often, not because they don't think they're important, but they never get round to doing them. And this is a great way to get around to doing that stuff.
There does need to be some common understanding of how we all relate to each other in this space. And so in its most basic form, I just want to give an example here. When we gather for the IDEA project, we say, we have to agree to participate in this event. We have to agree our community won't tolerate any hate speech or bullying, any exclusion or violence, any intimidation or harassment of any kind. We're going to be intentional with our language when we gather together. We're going to share honestly and bravely when we speak, and we're going to actively listen and hold space for others to share. And we want to acknowledge that our language is different in different places around the world and that we're all learning together. We're going to have patience with folks who are still learning and actively working to become better allies. And that's very specific to the event we're hosting, but every event, large or small, in every space needs at least a very basic agreement of how you're going to interact with each other in the space.
Great. So how can people get involved, and where do we start off?
Yeah, so if you go to the Coworking IDEA.org website, this month's challenge is highlighted and there are examples within the blog post. You can also take the challenge, which is a checklist that we've created to help you as you're either creating or updating your membership agreement and code of conduct. And we recommend that you do this annually. It's a living document, your membership agreement and code of conduct. And if you can, involve your members or your staff team in the creation and upkeep of this document as well. So if you want more support as well while you're doing these challenges on the coworkingidea.org website, you can also check the event calendar, where it will list events throughout the month that other groups like Cobot or Coworking Canada, Women Who Co-work, the UK Coworking Assembly, folks are going to be hosting events along this topic all throughout the month, where you can workshop or work sprint or talk to others while you take this challenge.
Nice. And with that, I just want to say about the checklist, it's a Google form, folks, so it's really easy to go through. There's a couple of times where I've been in co-working spaces where we talk through this together, and it's an unbelievably bonding process to sit around a table in the good old days before COVID, when we could sit around a table together. But of course, you could do it online and just talk about these things, because it's not very often you get to talk about these things. So, it's a sort of sounds so like Bob Hopey about it, but it's a very special moment for your co-working community coming together. So any final words before we sign off for this month?
I just want to encourage people to go to the site and make sure that if they can, they're supporting the project and moving money towards it, that they can share it with a friend. That would really help us to get the word out there to as many co-working operators and alliances and events as possible, so that they can participate as well, to host events if they'd like along the IDEA topics, and all throughout the month we'll help promote them if they want to add them to the Coworking IDEA calendar. And just to make sure they sign up for the newsletter and register for the conversation at the end of the month, because we get together on the last Wednesday of every month to discuss the results of the challenge and what your experience was like taking it. Again, you don't have to have all the answers. This is the place to discuss the process of going through the challenge. So
Brilliant. Thanks for watching, folks. Take care.
thanks, Bernie.